The story follows a high school boy named Masachika and his classmate Alisa, a half-Russian girl known for being cold and distant. Alisa often speaks in Russian, thinking Masachika doesn't understand her true feelings. However, Masachika secretly knows Russian, but pretends not to, leading to humorous and heartwarming moments as their relationship slowly develops. Alisa Kuju, known as Alia, is a popular and accomplished student with the highest grades, athletic prowess, and a position as the treasurer of the student council. Despite her appeal, she easily rejects the advances of Ando, a second-year student. She reprimands him for wearing a necklace against school rules, leaving everyone stunned by how effortlessly she handles the situation. When she arrives in class, she greets her friend Kuz, who is exhausted from watching anime late. She scolds him, calling him an idiot for losing sleep over cartoons. During chemistry class, Alea helps Kuz stay awake by poking him, causing him to mistakenly answer a teacher's question about the second most abundant element in the universe. After Kuzi incorrectly guesses copper, Alea cynically answers nickel, embarrassing Kuzi further. He confronts her, but she pretends to play innocent. Bro really said copper like he's in a Minecraft speedrun.
Aaliyah's out here playing innocent while toying with the poor soul.
Throughout these interactions, Aliyah insults him in Russian, unaware that Kuze secretly understands the language, having learned it from a Russian girl during childhood. Rather than reveal this, Kuze keeps it a secret, realizing that Aliyah might be subtly flirting with him. Later, Kuzi pulls out his phone to claim a character from a game, and Aliyah confiscates it, annoyed at his obsession. She returns it after seeing that he unlocked Tsukuyomi, a goddess with silver hair, a detail that makes Aliyah slightly jealous. She comments in Russian that she also has silver hair, but Kuzi, hiding his understanding, asks what she said, and Aliyah claims she called him an addict. Kuze justifies his dedication to the game, explaining that he has to work hard to progress, unlike wealthier students who can buy their way through. Frustrated, Aliyah expresses disappointment in his priorities. At lunch, Kuzi's friend Takeshi complains about not being popular with girls. The boys watch the student council members, including Aliyah, her sister Maria, and the spokesperson Suo Yuki. Takeshi envies the guy close enough to call Aliyah by her nickname, but Kuze, who interacts with her regularly, jokes that Takeshi wouldn't stand a chance. Takeshi admits his jealousy, noting that Aliyah nags Kuze often. While Kuze finds it irritating, Takeshi sees it as better than being ignored, considering how distant Aliyah is from others. He prefers So, who is more open and approachable, contrasting with Aliyah's colder, more distant demeanor. Alisa Kuju is a disciplined and admired student, yet jealousy stirs in her when Suo Yuki, the student council spokesperson, approaches her and Kuzi during lunch. Suo, who has known Kuze since childhood, engages him in lively conversation, making Aliyah feel uneasy. Suo asks Kuzi once again to join the student council, explaining that he was her vice president in elementary school, which surprises Aliyah. Kuzi reminds them he only agreed back then because Suo had pestered him. Suo praises Kuze for his competence, and Aliyah in Russian comments that she knows this well. After lunch, Aliyah remarks on Kuzi's newfound sociability with Suo, thinking he had no friends, to which Kuze humorously points to Aliyah herself. Reflecting on their friendship, Aliyah quickly leaves for student council duties. This triggers a memory in Kuzi of his childhood with a Russian girl who helped him learn the language. They admired sunsets together, and she gave him a sweet kiss on the cheek before they parted ways. Although he studied Russian to speak with her, he no longer remembers her name. The next day, Kuz arrives early at school, organizing the classroom before Aliyah arrives. She notices his unusual diligence and remarks it might rain. When Kuzi spots a stain on her sock, Aliyah explains a truck splashed her, but says she brought a spare pair. Changing the topic, she brings up the student council again, but Kuze repeats his disinterest. She then removes her dirty sock and mischievously asks Kuze to fetch her spare one. He reluctantly agrees, but Aliyah pushes further by asking him to put the sock on her. Now that's what I'm talking about. Get in there, Kuze.
Get a room, you two.
Flustered, Kuzi questions her motive, but Aliyah claims it's a reward for him and herself before teasing him in Russian. Kuz begins to suspect Aliyah is using him as a release from her perfect image. Despite her bravado, when Kuzi proceeds, she kicks him in the face after he accidentally touches her inappropriately. Hours later, Kuzi apologizes, and Aliyah, calling him a leg pervert in Russian, also admits fault for kicking him. Their awkward reconciliation escalates when Kuzi jokingly expresses gratitude for the view he had during the kick, earning him a punch from Aliyah, who curses him in Russian before running off. Kuzi chases her across the school, but Aliyah's athleticism leaves him behind. After a long chase, they finally catch their breath, and Kuze apologizes again. Aliyah acknowledges her part in the incident, and to make amends, Kuze offers her a can of Sharuko porridge, her favorite drink. Initially resistant, Aliyah accepts it and offers him a sip in Russian. Kuze, flustered at the thought of an indirect kiss, plays dumb, pretending not to understand her words. Aliyah, amused, teases him once more in Russian, pointing out that he doesn't seem to understand anything she says, leaving Kuze completely flustered. The day after, Kuze arrives to help Suo with something she had asked for. When he asks what it's about, Suo scolds him for his lack of manners, saying he should have asked if she had been waiting long. Kuze sarcastically reenacts what Suo wants, and she plays along. Aaliyah, watching with a sour expression, remarks that they get along well, which embarrasses Kuze. Soon after, he realizes he's there to help organize the storage room. Suo asks Kuze to grab some board games from a high shelf, claiming she doesn't know how to use a ladder. After he retrieves them, she explains she uses these games for school festivals, and also plays them during a recent student council meeting. Aaliyah interrupts, asking for less talking and more work. Not gonna lie, I smell a bit of jealousy somewhere.
To be honest, a little bit of a cringe behavior from Aaliyah, but cute nonetheless.
When Suo moves to another part of the room, Aaliyah, feeling ignored, repeatedly says in Russian that she wants attention, which leaves Kuze unsure how to react. After organizing the storage room, Kenzaki, the student council president, shows up. He compliments Kuze for his talents, and while Kuze thanks him, he can't help but notice that Kenzaki has a certain charm that makes him the school's popular president. Kuze has no interest in this, so he gets ready to leave. However, Kenzaki offers to treat him to dinner as a thank you for helping clean. Kuze refuses, but Suo insists because Kuze won't have dinner waiting for him at home. When Kenzaki asks how she knows this, she reveals they've been childhood friends. Kenzaki invites Sou and Aaliyah as well, and they all go to dinner together. During the meal, Sou praises Kuze for handling both physical work and paperwork with ease, saying he's also a great master of ceremonies and negotiators. Kenzaki, impressed, invites Kuze to join the student council. For the 1000th time, Kuze refuses, saying he's done enough after his middle school experience and is tired of it. Kenzaki acknowledges the workload but emphasizes that being on the council will greatly benefit Kuze's future job prospects. Kuze responds that he's not very ambitious, but Suo urges him to run for office with her again. Kuze argues that Suo will win without his help, but she insists she wants him by her side. When he declines again, Kenzaki remarks that Aaliyah is also running for president, to which Aaliyah confirms, prompting Suo to glare at her. After dinner, Kenzaki walks Suo home, while Kuze offers to walk Aaliyah home. She refuses, but Kuze doesn't want to leave her alone at night. During the walk, Kuze asks about her running for president, and she confirms it without much enthusiasm. She eventually thanks him for his company and insists she can go the rest of the way alone. When Kuze gets home, he notices women's shoes at the door and finds a girl reading a book on his couch. She tells him she'll be staying the night without prior notice. As she talks about the book, she comments that the protagonist doesn't realize he's an older brother to another character. Kuze finds this ironic, given that the girl is pretending to be his childhood friend to everyone. Surprised, Suo insists they are close like siblings, as they've known each other forever. With no place to hide, Aaliyah pretends she bumped into Kuze and Suo by accident at the mall, and they play along. She explains she came to buy clothes, so Suo invites her to join them for lunch. Kuze is nervous about the restaurant, and Suo teases that he was looking forward to this moment, surprising Aaliyah. When they arrive at Hell's Cauldron, Aaliyah's eyes widen at the name, but she doesn't back down. At the table, Suo explains the spiciness levels of the dishes, with Pool of Blood Hell being the mildest and Infinite Hell being unbearable. Kuze orders the least spicy option and the women follow. During the meal, Aaliyah comments on Suo's masculine outfit, and Suo casually mentions she borrowed Kuze's shirt after being in bed with him that morning, causing Kuze to spit out his water in shock. When asked to explain, Kuze clarified that Suo showed up at his house unannounced and jumped into his bed. The food arrives, and despite Kuze's warnings, Aaliyah takes a bite, her soul instantly cremated by the heat. She pretends it is fine, but she tears up and begs for death in Russian. Suo mischievously offers to add extra spice, and Aaliyah, determined, adds it. After taking another bite, she blacks out and wakes up in a park. Kuze offers her ice cream to soothe her. He asks why she wants to be president, and Aaliyah says she just wants to aim for something big, even without a running mate. Kuze reminds her she needs a vice president, so she decides to find one. In Russian, she admits she wishes Kuze would be by her side, touching him. Later, Aaliyah asks Kuze to accompany her to a clothing store, feeling uncertain about friendship dynamics. She tries on various outfits, getting flustered by Kuze's compliments on her beauty, and soon becomes addicted to his praise, trying on everything in the store. When she finally tries on a daring outfit, Suo shows up, embarrassing Aaliyah, who hides in the changing room. On the subway home, Aaliyah is left alone with her thoughts, still confused about why Kuze and Suo got off at the same station. When Aaliyah arrives home, her older sister Masha warmly greets her. Aaliyah mentions meeting Kuze and his childhood friend, and Masha teases that Aaliyah always seems irritated around him, suggesting that perhaps Kuze stirs her heart. Aaliyah denies this and dismisses the idea. Years earlier in Russia, Aaliyah was tasked with a school project, and while her classmates chose easy topics, she took on more difficult ones. Determined to win, she visited the florist and butcher shop for research, but her group did nothing, frustrating her. Despite her efforts, another group won, leaving Aaliyah devastated. She decided that since no one else seemed as motivated, she'd rely only on herself in the future. Years later in Japan, Aaliyah proudly passed a difficult transfer exam and started school. She met Kuz, a laid-back student who slept through class and was unmotivated in schoolwork and sports, surprising Aaliyah given the school's prestige. Damn, Kuzi really made a hell of a first impression there.
Look, the guy's just trying to catch some sleep. Schoolwork? Hey, who even cares? But not even caring about sports? I can't defend Kuze anymore.
For the upcoming school festival, Aaliyah took on sewing ghost costumes while her classmates, including Kuzi, were more relaxed. She overheard them saying the festival wasn't worth taking too seriously, which reminded her of her past frustrations. Determined to succeed alone, she continued working late, pricking her finger in the process. Kuzi eventually found her, showing her that the handicrafts club had offered to help, meaning she didn't need to work alone. Aaliyah, feeling frustrated and misunderstood, began crying, insisting she wanted the festival to be perfect. Kuze gently told her that school activities should be collaborative, not something to tackle alone. She left, upset and confused by his words. The next day, her class prepared for a pre-festival event that included hide-and-seek and a test of courage. Aaliyah began to relax and enjoy working with her classmates when she received a well-made ghost costume, even socializing more with them. On the day of the festival, their haunted house attraction was a hit, and their class won the prize for the best event. That night, during the post-festival folk dance, Aaliyah asked to sit next to Kuze. He assumed she didn't want to dance and remarked that any boy would love to dance with her. Aaliyah, though starting to bond with others, still seemed unsure of her place. She's caught between her drive to excel and her growing realization that teamwork and friendship might be just as important as individual effort. With a serious expression, Aaliyah mentions that she practiced ballet as a child, so the easy dance wouldn't be a problem, but she refused to dance with all the guys because she didn't want to bother. Kuze comments, "It must be tough, rejecting so many people," but she's used to it. He then realizes why people call her the Ice Princess, though Aaliyah is only bothered by the princess part, as it makes her seem snobby. She acknowledges she was born with above-average looks and talent, but it irritates her when people ignore her hard work, especially looking at the bandages on her fingers. Kuz suggests asking everyone to stop calling her that, and she thanks him, also noting she wouldn't have enjoyed the school festival as much if she had done it alone. Aaliyah even apologizes for getting mad at Kuz, but insists on making it up to him, so he asks if he can call her by her nickname, Aaliyah, as a reward. Flustered, Aaliyah agrees, but when boys approach her to dance, Kuzi pulls her away, telling them she's already taken. A real gentlemanly move. I'd be mad if he doesn't pull her by the end of this.
I bet Aaliyah's heart is aching from all the love she's feeling for Kuzi right now.
Though embarrassed, Aaliyah dances with him, feeling her heart race. The next day, Aaliyah coldly tells Kuze he's a waste of space, but her sister Masha teases her about what sounds like a love story. Aaliyah dismisses the idea, though Masha insists it's just like the movies, where friendships turn into romances. Later, in the student council room, Kuze meets Masha, who introduces herself as Aaliyah's older sister and acts friendly, even holding his hand and speaking in Russian. Kuze pretends not to understand, so she repeats herself in Japanese. Later, at a gift shop, Masha finds a plush cat she says looks like Aaliyah and suggests buying plush toys for all the student council members. Though Kuze finds it silly, she insists, even finding a line with glasses that looks like the council president. Kuze tries to stop her but gives in. Masha buys the cat plush anyway, and Kuze asks her not to put it on the same receipt, worrying her sister will be annoyed. Later, Masha gives Kuze the Aaliyah plush, and as she tries to take a picture, he blocks her camera with a bag. Inside a tea shop, Masha asks for his opinion on a product, but Kuze reflects that his sister Yuki would be better at this, recalling their parents' separation when Yuki stayed with their mother. Sensing his distress, Masha hugs him, but accidentally spills tea on his back, dropping the cup as the Aaliyah plush seems to watch. Kuze arrives at the student council room where Masha shows the new mascot to President Kanzaki, who admits it's cute but hopes Masha doesn't plan to keep it there. Kuze places the supplies on the table and Kanzaki thanks him, joking that the council would be in chaos if Kuju had gone shopping alone. The president pats Kuze on the shoulder, asking if he's reconsidered joining the council, but Kuze remains firm, though willing to help occasionally. Kenzaki asks why Kuze is so determined not to join, suspecting there's more than just the workload. Kuze replies he doesn't feel worthy of being a council member, but the president reminds him he was an excellent vice president in middle school. Kuze explains that the role felt aimless, but Kenzaki shares that he became president just to win over his crush, who is now his girlfriend, Sarashina Chisaki, the vice president. He shows Kuze a photo of his past self, unrecognizable from his current confident demeanor. Kenzaki believes Kuze doesn't need a grand reason to join, emphasizing it's what you do in the role that matters. Kenzaki encourages Kuze, reminding him he's proven capable before. Kuze recalls his past election, spurred by his sister's request to support her, which he initially saw as too much trouble. Kenzaki adds that Kuze could join to support someone else's presidency. Kuze says he'll consider it, and Kenzaki notes that thinking things over is a luxury of youth. Masha teases the president for seeming older than he is, and Kenzaki admits he's often mistaken for a grad student. Kuzi then asks about Alia, and Kenzaki says she's mediating a conflict between the baseball and soccer teams over field usage. Concerned, Kuze excuses himself to check on Alia. Meanwhile, in the locker room, Alia faces heated arguments between the teams, feeling ineffective and overwhelmed. She suggests training at a nearby park, but the teams reject the idea, reigniting their argument. Alia, feeling isolated and reminded of past regrets about distancing herself from others, quietly asks for help in Russian, believing no one will hear. Just then, Kuzi enters awkwardly, announcing he's been sent by the council to assist with the mediation, hoping to help Alia with the escalating situation. Kuzi had been watching Alia trying to calm the argument between the baseball and soccer teams, realizing her approach wouldn't work because both sides were too upset. He thought the council could buy time to restart the discussion, believing it was a good learning moment for her, and was about to leave when he heard her quietly ask for help in Russian. Reflecting on how she always says important things in a language no one understands, Kuzi decides to step in. As he enters the locker room, a baseball player recognizes him as the former vice president from elementary school. Kuzi addresses the dispute, suggesting the baseball team use the Riverside field since they have fewer players, and the soccer team can help them move their equipment. Initially, both sides resist, but the soccer assistants eventually offer help, calming the situation. Kuz asks the captains to submit formal requests to the student council. Later, he apologizes to Alia, worried he overstepped, but she's curious about his plan. Kuzi explains that one assistant, who's dating the baseball captain, was nudged by him to offer help. Returning to the council, Kenzaki asks if the conflict is resolved, then reveals the situation was staged to get Kuzi involved. This prompts Kuzi to finally agree to join the council. A pleased Kenzaki invites him into the room, and later that night, on the way home, Kuzi admits that while he doesn't like feeling tricked, he knows it's time to accept his role. Alia then asks if he'll run for president with Yuki So, but even if he does, she won't give up on her goal. Kuze assures her that he will support her to become president, not wanting her to be alone, and extends his hand. Alia wipes her tears and shakes his hand, surprising Kuzi with a phrase in Russian that brings back memories of his childhood Russian friend. Lost in thought, he is startled when Alia squeezes his hand hard, accusing him of thinking about another girl. I mean, they do say girls are very good at reading the thoughts of the man that they are close with.
Kuzi must be feeling embarrassed for getting caught red-handed.
Kuzi, caught off guard, admits to it, realizing his mistake. Alia assumes he was thinking about Yuki So and slaps him for forgiveness. As Kuzi falls, he compliments her strength and Alia helps him up. Near home, he jokes it's his first time being slapped by a girl, earning experience points, and Alia teases that he must have hit his head. At her building, she kisses his cheek goodbye, and later in her room, Alia panics, recalling she told Kuzi she loved him in Russian, denying to herself that she meant it. She resolves to focus on becoming president, though she fears Kuze might change his mind about supporting her. Her sister Masha enters, showing a stuffed kitten, and comments that Kuze is a great guy. Guessing Alia's feelings, Alia denies it, but Masha warns her to confess soon or risk losing him. Kuze, caught in his thoughts, feels embarrassed after saying something cheesy in front of the girl he likes. He's sure she said she loves him, but with his low self-esteem, he can't believe it is true, thinking she got caught up in the moment. Kuze imagines Alia screaming into her pillow in regret, reflecting on his own troubled view of love as fragile and unreliable due to his parents' constant fighting. When he gets home, he notices his sister Yuki's shoes, even though she said she'd be out. He heads to the bathroom and finds Yuki with the door open and undressed. She screams, calling him a pervert, but Kuzi thinks she planned this since leaving the door open isn't the best way to keep privacy. Yuki then admits it was on purpose, saying that every pair of siblings should experience the cliché scene where the brother walks in on his sister. What in the Alabama is going on here?
I don't see Kuzi backing off either, to be honest.
Kuzi calls her idea crazy, but Yuki insists on acting it out, even looking at an imaginary camera for a fan service shot. Yuki jokes it's her reward for tricking him earlier, but Kuzi says he doesn't want this kind of reward, to which Yuki retorts that he must have sneaked a peek. Cornered, Kuzi admits he glanced at the chest region, starting another round of their silly banter. Later in Kuzi's room, Yuki asks if he's joining the student council. He says yes, but that he's supporting Alaya for president. Yuki feels like she's losing her brother to the Russian girl and wonders why her own charms aren't enough to keep him interested. She teases him about wanting to be the first to honk his sister's horn, but remembers it already happened when they were kids during a game of tag. They collide and Kuziu accidentally touches something he shouldn't have, which makes Yuki lose her humor, recalling her quieter days. She freaks out and demands he pampers her instead of judging her past, handing him her hairbrush. Kuzi brushes her hair while apologizing for supporting Alia, but Yuki enjoys the idea of a classic sibling rivalry. Kuzi reassures her that he hasn't stopped liking her, but Yuki declares they're now rivals, though she's willing to forgive him if he changes his mind. Kuzi feels awkward, but assures her he won't abandon Aaliyah. Outside his room, Yuki laments not being the one to inspire her brother, but tries to act unbothered, although she hates losing. The next morning, Kuzi wakes up wondering if he hurt Yuki's feelings, but finds her pranking him, stuck under the bed. Instead of helping, he jokes about ending her life, smothering her. Meanwhile, Aliyah waits, nervously anticipating Kuzi's arrival, trying to act normal, but feeling the glow around him when he finally shows up, looking happier than usual. Don't tell me that Kuze, who has no riz, has managed to melt an Ice Queen's heart.
Can't wait for the day when Aaliyah finds out that Kuzi could understand Russian all along, though.
Aaliyah notices Kuze arrives without his usual yawns, thinking he's trying to adjust his behavior around her like he promised. While playing volleyball, Aaliyah scores the winning point, but Kuze isn't as lucky in his game, getting hit in the head by a ball. Nursing a bump, he tries to recover, but his stomach growls loudly. Aaliyah checks on him, and as she places her hand on her own forehead, then on his, he gets a prime view of her chest, recalling his sister's odd talk and swallowing hard. When Aaliyah ties her hair, revealing the edge of her armpit, Kuzi remembers his advice about sneaking peeks. Aaliyah notices and questions his strange behavior, but he brushes it off. She suggests drinking water, and they go together. While Kuz tries to hide his feelings, Masha arrives, and they chat as Kuze gazes at the sky, lost in thoughts about gym uniforms. Masha offers a towel, but Kuzi prefers drying off in the sun. Masha playfully pulls him down to towel his head, giving him a close-up view. He thanks her, joking he feels like a dog after a bath. Jealous, Aaliyah drags him back to class with Masha following. Aaliyah then asks if Kuze is feeling better, showing the same kindness as before, and he asks why she's being so nice. She says she's worried since he's been acting weird, and as he tries to respond, his stomach growls, making Aaliyah think he's hungry. Kuze explains he had a good night's sleep, but Aaliyah, who couldn't sleep thinking of him, storms off in anger, and Kuze sees the Aaliyah he knows. At the end of the day, Kuzi invites Aaliyah to the student council room. In the hallway, soccer and baseball players line up like army recruits. Kuze opens the council room door and meets Sarashina Chisaki wielding a bamboo katana. Thinking he's in the wrong room, Kuzi tries to leave, but Sarashina stops him, calming down as she explains her anger over the team's fights. She sent a junior to mediate, but they ignored her, so she resorted to bamboo. Kuze finds her behavior excessive, but Sarashina laughs it off, insisting it won't kill anyone. Kenzaki, her boyfriend, explains she only threatened the players, not harmed them. Sarashina, embarrassed, slaps Kenzaki, who jokes it relieved his pain. Masha arrives asking them to keep things civil in the council room. Sarashina apologizes, but Kenzaki says he's willing to endure her slaps to stay by her side, pulling her closer romantically. Aaliyah and Kuzi laugh, and Masha comments on how well they get along, making Aaliyah blush. Yuki arrives late, and the student council meeting begins with Kuzi introducing himself and announcing his run for president alongside Aaliyah.
Okay, Ken, my turn now. Kuzi claims to be a big fan of otaku media and is open to chatting about it. The president announces that Kuzi is now a council member, and his first task is to help Masha, the older Kuju sister. Yuki mentions she's heading to the art club to discuss their next exhibition and wants to bring Aaliyah, the treasurer, along. Aaliyah agrees, and the president approves. As they head out, Kuzi feels something might go wrong, and Aaliyah seems to agree. She stops Yuki for a private chat in an empty classroom, stating her intention to run for president with Kuze. She's not apologizing, but wants Yuki to hear it directly. Yuki doesn't mind, but admits to feeling bad about not being chosen by Kuze. She then confesses she loves Kuze more than her parents, shocking Aaliyah. Yuki presses Aaliyah on her feelings, even pushing her against the wall until Aaliyah admits she doesn't know if she loves Kuze. Aaliyah then declares she won't let Yuki have him. Yuki's pleased with the response, and they agree to call each other by their first names. Meanwhile, Kuze and Masha are working, and he notices she's skilled and organized. However, Kenzaki's girlfriend, Chizaki, is very clumsy. Kenzaki sends Chizaki to help restock the library, frustrated by her blunders, and explains that despite her clumsiness, she excels in club and committee discussions. With the president gone, Masha suggests a tea break, bringing milk, sugar, and strawberry jam, which is also used in Russian tea. Kuze, who has a fondness for Russia from watching Russian movies with his grandfather, enjoys the tea, even though he finds the jam too sweet. Masha explains that her family drinks this tea year-round. Aaliyah and Yuki return, and Masha offers them tea. Yuki eagerly accepts, but Aaliyah is less enthusiastic, having had a rough time with Yuki. Aaliyah sits so close to Kuz that she pushes him aside, citing a Russian superstition about bad luck from sitting at the corner of the table. This makes Yuki jealous, and Kuze realizes he's in the middle of a rivalry. To defuse the situation, he asks Masha about the superstition, and she confirms confirms that it's believed single people who sit at the corner of the table will never marry, according to Russian culture.
Not me rooting for Aaliyah to end up with Kuzi because her opponent is literally his sister.
Masha serves Alia jelly before tea, and later, Kenzaki dismisses the freshmen while the second-year students stay behind for a teacher meeting. As Kuze and Alia walk home, Kuze senses something's wrong because Alia seems irritated. He invites her to royal fast to discuss her presidential candidacy, and while Alia agrees, she mutters in Russian that this isn't a date, surprising Kuze. Inside, he asks why she's upset. Alia claims she's tired, but soon asks if Kuze is dating Yuki. Kuze seriously denies it, warning Alia that Yuki's just teasing her. Shifting back to the election, Kuze tells Alia they won't beat Yuki without a strong campaign, reminding her of past elections where popular candidates dominated. Alia listens, but bites her straw in frustration, more focused on her own thoughts. She pretends to be distracted by the ice cream and offers Kuz a spoonful. Kuzi hesitates, wanting a new spoon, but Alia insists, saying this is common in Russia, effectively sharing an indirect kiss. The onlookers are amused, and Kuze spots Taniyama but stays quiet. Refocusing, Kuze explains that to beat Yuki, Alia needs a compelling story that resonates, like how Kenzaki was elected by overcoming his past. Alia asks how to handle the indirect kiss spoon, and Kuzi admits he's nervous. Alia teases him, and when he questions if sharing spoons is normal in Russia, she replies in Russian that she'd only do it with him, which Kuz now anticipates without panicking. Discussing the presidency again, Kuz emphasizes the importance of authenticity and openness, which he finds captivating in Alia. She responds in Russian, asking for more compliments and details about his thoughts, but they move on as their spicy food order arrives. Kuze offers Alia a taste, and though she's nervous about embarrassing herself, she agrees. Kuze jokingly serves her an entire chili pepper, which she eats, reacting badly and calling him an idiot in Russian. On the way home, Alia is still recovering from the spice, but pretends she's fine, fueled more by her determination to beat Yuki in the election. She asks who Yuki might choose as vice president. Kuzi thinks it's likely to be Taniyama, which worries Alia since Taniyama has a strong electoral history with Yuki. Kuzi recalls that Taniyama stepped down from the presidential race years ago. The next day, Yuki introduces Kimishima Ayano from Class 1C to the council, stating she will handle general duties alongside Kuze, which makes him suspicious of Yuki's intentions. The next day, the new student council member, Kimishima Ayano, confronts Kuzi in a formal and passive-aggressive manner, expressing disappointment that Kuze is supporting Elisa Kuju for president, which leaves Yuki behind. Kuze curses the old man who had warned that leaving would mean he couldn't call himself Yuki's brother anymore. Ayano clarifies she's not speaking for her master, but is evaluating potential threats to Yuki as her assistant. Kuze mocks her loyalty, questioning if she's an unpaid samurai, but Ayano ignores the provocation and believes Kuze isn't trying to hurt Yuki. Kuze admits he's supporting Alia despite it affecting Yuki, stating it's a priority for him. Ayano reacts slightly, impressed by his honor, and Kuze confirms he promised to do his best for Alia. Ayano considers that Kuzi's actions are driven by special feelings for Alia, but he insists it's simply his choice. He tells Ayano to relay directly to his master if there are concerns, and he confirms his love for Yuki remains unchanged. Ayano thanks him and leaves, and Kuze realizes his sister is upset. Later in class, Takeshi shows off a magazine with bikini-clad girls and asks Kuze for his favorite. Kuze claims ignorance about idols, which Takeshi criticizes, so Kuze points to a girl in the magazine, and Hikaru and Takeshi note she resembles Masha. Kuze then argues the girl has a boyfriend. Hikaru asks if Kuze would go for her if she didn't, making Kuze defensive. Alia appears and calls him a pervert in Russian, criticizing the magazine's presence. Kuze defends himself, saying Takeshi brought it, and Alia insists on reprimanding perverts rather than looking at magazines. Well, that's one way for Kuze to lose his aura points in front of Alia.
Just wait till he gains all these lost aura points back. Alia surely wouldn't wait to jump in his arms.
Takeshi asks if Kuze would date Yuki, and he says no, preferring someone who is also his best friend. Alia, in Russian, asks if she is that person, unsettling Kuze and making him remember his first crush. He admits he'd love someone with a beautiful smile, and his friends suggest qualities Alia lacks, making her more embarrassed. embarrassed. Kuze changes the subject, and Takeshi, standing at a table, jokes that none of this matters if Aaliyah were as hot as the girl in the magazine. Aaliyah sarcastically apologizes for being just a pretty face, takes the magazine, and leaves. Ayano tells Yuki that Kuze refuses to abandon Aaliyah, and if the master wants to say something, it should be to his face. Yuki sees this as a declaration of war and questions if Ayano has romantic feelings for Kuze. Ayano says she idolizes Kuze, but has no romantic feelings and only wants to serve him. Yuki, feeling flattered, almost shouts her love for Kuze and prepares for a serious battle, noting that most students see her as the favorite and view Aaliyah's candidacy with hostility. She is eager to face her brother and Elisa Kuju, determined to turn the situation in her favor. Yuki concludes by asking Ayano if she sounded like a final boss in a game.
She sure sounds like one.
For real. The sheer determination of Yuki to win this election with or without her brother is truly praiseworthy. The next day, the council girls are playing poker with chocolate chips, and Yuki is dominating the game. Kuze observes that Yuki has quick thinking, while Sarashina loudly remarks that it's easy to read Aaliyah's intentions. Kuze complains about Sarashina's volume, and her boyfriend agrees, saying Aaliyah may have everything but lacks a poker face, unlike her sister Masha. Sarashina adds that Masha, though seen as virtuous, has some strange behaviors. Ayano arrives with more juice, and Kanzaki notes her unique behavior, which Ayano attributes to her upbringing from grandparents who served Yuki's family. Ayano admires them and decides to follow their example, feeling happy to serve Yuki. Kuze asks her to stop with the happy slave talk, and Ayano, full of love and respect, apologizes, which confuses Kuze. Kanzaki questions why Ayano moves silently, and she explains it was a lesson from her grandparents, who were strict about making no noise. Masha joins the boys after Aaliyah tells her to leave, and Kanzaki is worried about how heated things might get. She tries to calm him, saying Aaliyah is enjoying the game, but Kanzaki is unsure if Aaliyah's sweaty face shows happiness. When the juice runs out, Masha releases Ayano from buying more and invites Kuze to accompany her. Masha asks for lemon tea, Yuki for cafe au lait, Aaliyah for shiruko, Kanzaki for cider, his girlfriend for soda, and Ayano for water. Kuze pulls the girls along, and Masha thanks him for supporting her sister's candidacy, saying she needs this support. Masha loves her sister's determination and explains their complicated sibling relationship. She doesn't want Aaliyah to feel isolated, and Kuze relates to this feeling but doesn't want to feel inferior to Yuki, who openly shows her love for him. Masha wants to keep their conversation private, which Kuze understands. He admits he plays lazy to avoid being needed, and Masha reassures him, making Kuze feel emotionally vulnerable. Later, Aaliyah is approached by Taniyama Sayaka from Class F, who accuses her of stealing the running mate Yuki had in mind just to irritate her. Aaliyah gets nervous, but Sayaka insists it's irrelevant how Aaliyah got Kuze on her team. Kuze intervenes, stating he chose to join Aaliyah's campaign on his own, and demands an apology for insulting his running mate. Sayaka, not believing Kuze, challenges him to the student congress, sparking excitement among the crowd. Sayaka criticizes Kuze for being on the council and calls Aaliyah a puppet, prompting Aaliyah to step up for the fight. Sayaka declares she will defeat them both in the debate. In the next scene, Kuze and Elisa discuss their strategy for the upcoming school congress debate with Kanzaki, focusing on the issue of teacher reviews for council access. Kuze is worried because his poor reputation among teachers might be scrutinized. Kanzaki questions if they should proceed, doubting the benefits. Elisa counters that succeeding in the debate will legitimize their candidacy and mentions that Kuze insulted her, so she plans to force him to apologize. Kuze sees the positive side, noting it will allow him to present his candidacy before the closing ceremony, and agrees to announce by the end of the day. Yuki offers to help with the announcement and wishes them luck. Later, Kuze and Elisa go over their strategy, with Kuze showing Elisa where Sayaka, their opponent, will be based on his knowledge of her. Elisa presents her countermeasure, which Kuze approves but suggests could be more concise. Elisa then asks about Kuze's relationship with Sayaka, and he explains they had mutual respect when they worked together. But Sayaka now believes he's running just to cause trouble. He admits Sayaka might think he's stirring things up for fun. Elisa realizes this tension might be due to her and reassures Kuze that she plans to help him win. The next day, as they prepare for the debate, Sayaka's debate partner, Nonoa Miyamai, approaches Kuze and warns him that she won't participate, which explains her calm demeanor. After Nonoa leaves, Kuze tells Elisa that Nonoa is Sayaka's childhood friend and very popular with connections in the upper echelons. He advises Elisa to focus on Sayaka during the debate. As the debate begins, Elisa stands on stage, worried about whether she'll manage after being ignored last time. Motivated by her commitment to Kuzi, she decides to push forward despite student whispers doubting her ability and predicting Sayaka will crush her. Feeling immense pressure, Elisa is startled when Kuzi unexpectedly asks her if she uses a cup, causing her shock and questioning his appropriateness.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Kuzi needs to calm down here.
Shh, maybe he has some other intentions. Kuzi explains he was trying to distract her and check if she was calmer, advising her to stop striving for perfection and focus on what feels right. He reassures her that if things get tough, he'll handle it. Elisa regains focus as Kenzaki begins the school congress, announcing the debate topic, the review of faculty access to the council, proposed by Sayaka and opposed by Elisa and Kuze. Sayaka argues that the current system allows unqualified individuals in power and suggests making the council exclusive to those recommended by teachers. Her speech receives loud applause, and many students doubt Elisa's ability to counter. Elisa, inspired by Kuzi's advice, argues that the motion would undermine the council's integrity and democratic process by stripping the president and vice president of their appointing powers and reducing the council's independence from faculty influence. She questions the consequences of a faculty-chosen council, emphasizing the importance of student autonomy. As Elisa speaks, Kuze observes the split in opinions among students, feeling proud of Elisa. After her speech, she receives decent applause from the students. Kenzaki starts the debate with Sayaka speaking first. Sayaka argues that the school board's practice of accepting all volunteers might lead to issues with poor performance. Elisa counters by asking for examples of problems caused by this approach, which she hasn't observed. Sayaka insists on the need for teacher reviews to prevent poor performance, but Elisa argues that this decision should be made by the president and vice president, although they can seek help from teachers if needed. As Sayaka starts to feel cornered, Kuzi realizes she has underestimated Elisa by focusing too much on him. Sayaka then questions, what if the president and vice president abuse their power? Other students begin to voice their support for Sayaka, suggesting that a stranger might not understand the school's needs, which Kuze suspects is due to Nonoa's influence. Overwhelmed, Elisa loses her train of thought, and Kuze steps in to reassure her, patting her back and joking that her vocal cords aren't used to talking so much. He then takes over the podium, questioning the need for the debate since Kenzaki was elected by students despite being an underperforming student. Kenzaki emphasizes that the current system allowed him to become a good candidate through hard work and dedication. Kenzaki moves to closing statements and asks Sayaka if she's satisfied. Sayaka runs off, and Elisa decides to follow her. Nonoa hints they'll withdraw the motion, leading Kenzaki to close the Congress. Sayaka reflects on feeling betrayed after seeing Kuzi with Elisa, believing Kuzi and Yuki were an unbeatable pair. Elisa finds Sayaka and comforts her, encouraging her to express her feelings. Sayaka admits feeling foolish for idealizing Kuze and Yuki. Nonoa arrives to apologize and assures Elisa she'll care for Sayaka. Before leaving, Elisa tells Sayaka that she's determined to prove her worth to Kuze. Nonoa advises Sayaka to apologize when ready, and Sayaka agrees. Meanwhile, Yuki watches, noting Kuze's lack of killer instinct, which she believes will be his downfall. Later, Elisa asks Kuze why he chose her over Yuki, and Kuze explains he was motivated by guilt with Yuki, but genuinely chose to be Elisa's partner. Elisa laughs and responds in Russian, leaving Kuze puzzled. As they leave, Elisa comments on her breast size, making Kuze nervous and puzzled by her words. Yuki and her grandfather discuss the school congress, with the grandfather noting that Kuze and the heiress of Taniyama Industries participated and that Sayaka had previously run against Yuki in middle school elections, but withdrew during the debate. He feels Sayaka's withdrawal made Kuzi's campaign more legitimate and tells Yuki she must not lose, emphasizing that with great power comes great responsibility, as Uncle Ben once said to Peter Parker. Yuki's mother, who seems regretful, asks if Yuki still gets along with her brother. Yuki says yes and offers to discuss anything about him, but her mother declines, reminding Yuki of her Chinese classes and wishing her good luck. In Yuki's room, she asks Ayano for a hug and presses her face against her chest, saying it makes her feel better. At school, Kuzi's classmates ask him about his success in the school congress, showing curiosity. Noticing Elisa's unhappiness, Kuzi directs the conversation toward her, giving her credit for the victory. Despite his efforts, students are not very interested in talking to her, so Kuzi uses a student in front of him to ask Elisa questions, encouraging others to do the same. When students begin bad-mouthing Sayaka, Elisa is upset and leaves the room. Kuzi follows her to the student council room, where he questions if it really bothers her when others mock Sayaka. He reminds her they fought fairly, and there's no need to correct others. Elisa acknowledges this, but feels they didn't defeat Sayaka. She withdrew. Kuze says if they don't maintain appearances, their victory will be meaningless. Elisa apologizes for the extra work, but Kuze reassures her, saying he'll help with everything, which brightens her mood. However, Kuzi notices Kenzaki and Shizaki hiding in a desk chair, leading him to consider the situation like a romantic comedy. As Elisa gets closer, Kuze diverts attention to Kenzaki and Shizaki, who excuse themselves, claiming they are looking for something. Kuze uses a trick to tell them they haven't seen anything, and Elisa nervously rushes away. Later, Kuze meets Nonoa and asks to talk privately. Nonoa offers to go out with him, though she's surprised when Kuze advises her to date someone she truly likes. Nonoa admits she's never dated someone she truly liked and feels all women are like that. Kuze, concerned, tells her not to undervalue herself, surprising Nonoa since Sayaka had said the same thing. Kuzi then discusses the negative talk about Sayaka and suggests spreading a rumor to explain her withdrawal, even though it might affect their victory. Nonoa agrees to handle it. After she leaves, Kuze mentions the name Anna, thinking of ninjas, and is startled when Anna appears behind the desk. Yuki, also present, explains her curiosity about Kuze and Nonoa. When Elisa arrives and sees them together, she misunderstands and leaves angrily. Nonoa remembers Sayaka slapping her and telling her to stop undervaluing herself. Nonoa later tells her friends that Kuzu wanted to discuss Sayaka, and she reveals that Sayaka withdrew from the debate because she was upset with Nonoa for placing people in the audience during the Congress. Back with Kuze, he mentions running into Yuki and Ayano, but is disbelieved by Elisa. He then asks if she wants to study together after classes, which she agrees to. In the student council room, Kuze questions if Elisa being close bothers him. She asks if it does, and he says it doesn't, so he reluctantly accepts it.
Come out of the closet already, you two, and confess your feelings.
You do realize how bad it sounded, right? Yuki and Ayano enter, and Yuki asks if she can join them. Elisa initially rejects her request in Russian, but Kuze agrees. Elisa mentions she would have preferred to be alone, making Kuze internally complain about her charm. As they study, Kuze reads solutions rather than problems, claiming it's a waste of time to stress over unsolved problems. Yuki and Ayano explain that Kuze's method is typical for him. Kuze offers to help Ayano with homework, though she prefers to be scolded, which he declines. Elisa questions the close relationship between Kuze and Ayano, but before Kuze can answer, Masha arrives and serves tea. Masha sees a hypnosis book and asks Elisa to try it on her. When Elisa refuses, Masha asks Kuze, who agrees. Kuze follows the book's instructions, and Masha falls asleep after a clap. Kuze tries to wake her by touching her shoulder, but Masha doesn't remember falling asleep. Skeptically, Yuki suggests testing it on herself, and Elisa falls asleep easily. Yuki considers using the opportunity for fun and suggests making them undress or reveal secrets. They vote, and Yuki's idea wins. Kuze tells Elisa and Masha they will feel liberated and start undressing. Both stand up, and Masha strokes their heads, while Elisa begins removing her clothes. Yuki hadn't expected Masha to start a harem. Kuze's attempts to wake them fail, and Shizaki arrives, asking what's happening. Yuki explains the situation, and Shizaki resets Elisa and Masha with a quick hand movement. As they wake up and realize they are half naked, they scream in embarrassment. Shizaki then approaches Kuze, proposing to reset him too. Scared, Kuze refuses with his eyes tightly shut. Kuze feels unmotivated and tempted to watch his favorite anime, but knows he needs to focus on his studies for an important exam the next day. Doubting his perseverance, he resolves not to let his classmate Aaliyah's evaluation suffer due to his own lack of focus. Just then, Aaliyah calls him to check in after hearing a strange noise. She reminds him that studying alone often makes him slack off and asks how he's doing. Kuze admits he's struggling and asks for her advice. Aaliyah, confident she has never lost motivation, proposes a bet. If Kuze ranks in the top 30 of their grades, she will grant him any reasonable wish. If he fails, he will have to grant her a wish. Kuze accepts the challenge, joking about hiding his masochistic excitement and admitting he doesn't understand Russian. He vows to make Aaliyah regret the bet and teases her about her improved ignoring skills, calling her his younger sister. Aaliyah is surprised by this and points out they are the same age. Kuze then mentions her birthday is the 7th of November, which surprises her. He casually reminds her she mentioned it when she transferred and shares his own birthday, 9th April, saying he is already 16. After ending the call, Kuze is amused, thinking Aaliyah must have sensed his lack of motivation and wonders if they have a telepathic connection. On her end, Aaliyah feels relieved for reaching out and regrets not wishing Kuze a happy birthday. 5 days later, Kuze and Aaliyah sit together at the back of the classroom after their exams. Kuze praises Aaliyah's performance, but notices she seems bothered. He invites her to walk home together to discuss the upcoming closing ceremony, and she agrees. As they walk, Kuze notices Aaliyah has stopped using Russian to hide her feelings, and asks if she thinks she has been acting strangely. Aaliyah is surprised he notices, but blushes and plays with her hair. She asks why he hasn't invited her to his birthday party if he cares so much. Kuze, caught off guard, explains he hasn't had a party, and Aaliyah is shocked. She confirms that celebrating birthdays is a tradition in Russia, and explains that not sharing a birthday could mean they wouldn't stay close. Kuze, smiling, asks if she would celebrate his belated birthday, and Aaliyah, slightly embarrassed, brushes off the comment. As they walk, Kuze notices people staring at Aaliyah and comments on it. Aaliyah shrugs it off, saying it's part of being beautiful, and explains she speaks Russian to fend off unwanted attention. They joke about how she handles admirers, and Aaliyah points out that Kuze is acting like a boyfriend. Kuze apologizes, explaining that guys act like boyfriends on dates, which surprises Aaliyah. He adds that it must be her first date, as she has never been on one before. At the aged beef restaurant, Kuze admires his choice, but Aaliyah casually mentions she has been there with her family before, surprising him. They go inside and take their seats, where Kuze discusses the upcoming closing ceremony, outlining the presentations of presidential candidates and their partners. Kuze tells Aaliyah that even though there will be no formal voting, the audience will show support through applause, and they need to avoid getting no applause at all. He suggests their main goal should be to close the gap between them and Yuki instead of aiming for outright victory. He recommends going first in the speeches to set a high bar and reduce applause for others. Aaliyah looks uncertain. Their lunch arrives, and Kuze toasts a belated birthday celebration. During the meal, Aaliyah asks if Kuze is involved in a rumor about Miyamai. Kuze reflects on Miyamai's tactics of planting shills, but firmly denies any involvement, stating that Miyamai came up with and spread the rumor herself. Although the Taniyama situation is resolved, Kuze feels he could have handled it better. Aaliyah reassures him that she hasn't contributed much and thanks him sincerely, which makes him blush. As Aaliyah feeds him a spoonful of food, Kuze is impressed by her calm demeanor. Afterward, Aaliyah gives him a birthday present, a beautifully crafted mug. Kuze teases her about couples buying tableware in pairs, but Aaliyah confirms hers is part of a set she uses at home, which flusters him. Later at school, Kuze discusses summer uniform changes with Tuya Kenzaki. Ayano and Chizaki exchange compliments, and Kuze learns that new uniform designs will be announced at the closing ceremony. Masha brings tea, and Kuze wonders if she is still upset about the hypnosis incident. Masha decides to clean up, and Kuze helps her, apologizing for hypnotizing her. Masha playfully calls him a pervert but finds it good.
If I had a penny for every time Kuze got called a pervert, I would be richer than Elon Musk.
Kuze really out here getting played by these two half-Russian sisters since he met them. As they clean, she gives him a light punishment and reminds him not to embarrass girls. Masha's phone rings, and she thinks her mom has arrived. Kuze finishes setting up and talks to Yuki Suo, who questions why he is ignoring her. Kuze says he shouldn't treat Ayano like she's invisible, making Yuki feel lonely. As Kuze's grandpa arrives in a flashy suit, Kuze jokes about it looking like something a mobster would wear. His grandpa, unbothered, mentions he bought it with his pension. Aaliyah and her mother, Kujo Akemi, appear, catching Kuze off guard. Kuze's grandpa charms Aaliyah and suggests she marry Kuze, prompting Kuze to react nervously. They are interrupted by Yumi Suo, who reminds Kuze of his mother. Kuze runs into his mother, Yumi, triggering childhood flashbacks of him striving for perfect grades and excelling at the piano to please her, only to face constant disappointment. Waking from this dream, Kuze realizes he's caught a cold. Aaliyah soon arrives, explaining that Yuki informed her of his illness and asked her to bring medicine. Kuze, annoyed that Yuki didn't tell him, tries to send Aaliyah away, but she insists on staying, revealing that she wants to care for him. After preparing porridge and teasing each other, Aaliyah learns that Kuze's mother isn't around, and he comes from a single-parent household. Despite Kuze's protests, Aaliyah stays to study. Later, Kuze wakes up to find Ayano, Yuki's maid, awkwardly assisting him. Aaliyah dismisses Ayano, but the maid insists she was ordered to help.
Ah, yes! Nothing quite like being pampered by two beautiful ladies.
Something seems fishy though. After Aaliyah leaves, Ayano gives Kuze a soup made by Aaliyah. The next morning, Kuze realizes he's missed class and discovers that Ayano gave him drowsiness-inducing medicine. Suspecting Yuki, Kuze rushes to school, overhearing students praising Yuki while belittling Aaliyah. At school, Aaliyah apologizes for a mistake. She explains that Yuki approached her about Kuzi's illness and convinced her to go on a broadcast during lunch, seeing it as a chance to flaunt her success. Though hesitant, Aaliyah agreed. She apologizes again for not standing up to Yuki, feeling like she ruined everything, but Kuzi comforts her. Aaliyah then reluctantly agrees to appear on the broadcast during Kuzi's illness, sensing Yuki's ulterior motives. Yuki hints that it's a perfect chance to damage Kuzi's credibility, but Aaliyah stands firm, warning Yuki not to underestimate her. Before the broadcast, Yuki unexpectedly apologizes, sharing a personal story about her talented brother. Aaliyah is moved, but during the broadcast, her nerves get the best of her, and she struggles to stay composed. Afterward, Aaliyah feels she ruined everything. Kuzi, however, reassures her that Yuki's goal isn't to dominate, but to throw her off balance, and she falls into Yuki's trap. Realizing Yuki was setting the stage for the ceremony, Aaliyah thanked Kuz. When she asks why he's smiling like Yuki, Kuzi admits he's impressed by Yuki's tactics. Embarrassed, Aaliyah jokes that it almost seemed like Kuzi was confessing his feelings. Kuzi encourages Aaliyah to hold her head high, reminding her that her reasons for wanting to be president are valid. They're interrupted by Sokka and Nano, who apologize for their past behavior. Aaliyah accepts the apology, but notes she didn't mention the school congress because she hasn't truly won yet. Sayaka, realizing Aaliyah's pride, acknowledges they share similar traits. Kuzi warns Sayaka not to declare defeat at the ceremony and suggests an alternative. Sayaka agrees, and Kuzi tells Aaliyah that their goal is no longer to tie, they must destroy their opponents. Aaliyah and Kuz meet in the grand audience hall to rehearse her speech for the student council presentation. Kuzi reassures Aaliyah that she'll do well if she performs like she did during the school congress, but Aaliyah admits her nerves, knowing the audience will be larger. Kuzi advises her to focus on her message and shares a tip to break the ice and grab attention. Suddenly, Yuki and Nonoa enter, and playful banter ensues between Kuz and Yuki, hinting at underlying tension. Aaliyah remains composed, affirming her wish to be friends with Yuki. President Kenzaki arrives with others to finalize the speech order, which is decided by a coin toss. Yuki wins and chooses to speak first, leaving Aaliyah feeling pressured to go second.
The more Aaliyah tries to calm herself, the more the universe seems to throw banana peels in her path.
Fingers crossed. Let's hope the Ice Princess doesn't freeze up during her big speech. The next day, Yuki delivers a confident speech, announcing her run for president and promising to give students a voice, sparking excitement among the crowd. Kuzi remarks on the lack of substance in her promises. Ayano, Yuki's assistant, follows with a light-hearted speech, impressing the audience. Kuze realizes the pair planned their speeches strategically to gain support. Afterward, Kuze checks on Aaliyah, reminding her that the student council presentation was meant for her introduction. Yuki and Ayano successfully stole the spotlight, as intended. As Aaliyah, the student council treasurer, approaches the podium, students whisper about how well Ayano did, praising Yuki as a sure bet for president. Aaliyah silences the crowd by starting her speech in Russian, then switching back and apologizing, claiming nerves caused her mistake. The audience laughs, assuming it is a joke, and Aaliyah recalls Kuzi's advice to grab their attention by surprising them. With their full focus, Aaliyah introduces herself, admitting she doesn't fully understand the council's responsibilities, but confidently stating no one works harder than she does. She acknowledges her mistakes, but remains determined to improve step by step and asks for their support. As applause grows, Kuzi praises her for a fantastic job. Kuzi then takes the stage, introducing himself as Masachika, the council's general affairs officer. He reveals he's Yuki's mysterious vice president, but has left her side, not out of disloyalty, but to support Aaliyah. He believes a president must have charisma, and Aaliyah's sincerity convinced him to back her. To further sway the audience, Kuze announces that Sayaka Taniyama and Nonoa Miyamai will join Aaliyah's council if she becomes president. The crowd is shocked, but Sayaka and Nonoa confirm this, leading to thunderous applause. Afterwards, Sayaka tells Aaliyah and Kuz that she won't assist further, expecting them not to disappoint her. Yuki, observing from afar, acknowledges their strong play, realizing her over-reliance on strategy. Then, nervously, they start calling each other by their first names, since they have officially been recognized as partners for the council. Both of them grow flustered, but with some effort, Aaliyah manages to call him Masachika. As they leave, Kuze shyly suggests they spend the holidays together. Blushing, Aaliyah steps closer and asks him to look at her. With a joyful smile, Aaliyah replies that it would be her pleasure.
So that's how it ends, huh? It's a bit abrupt, but it's nice to know they already confirmed the second season. I'm excited.
Yeah, same thing here.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click the like and subscribe button because it helps the channel grow by a lot more than you think. Until next time.
See you next time.